This is TG with Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. What we're going to do today is we're going to take CasaOS, and don't get confused because there's ZFS, which uses Casa. In ZFS, that particular operating system with the Debian operating system that they have now, that one does do RAID. But if you're just putting CasaOS on Ubuntu server or Debian server or whatever Debian distribution you're using, it doesn't have any RAID capability. It does have the ability to combine drives as if they're one, but there is no parity. So in this instance, we're going to create a RAID 5 using ZFS. Now, we're going to be also managing this with a web interface as well, but there will be a little bit of command lines that we have to do, but everything is cut and paste. CasaOS was made to be very easy use, so I'm trying to make this part of this to have a RAID array with Casa very easy. You don't have to remember any commands. All the commands are in the descriptions. It's all cut and paste. Let's get started. Alright, so here is my Casa open up in my web browser. Now, in this particular case, I'm using Linux Mint, and I actually installed the Casa program on Linux Mint because you can install it on any Debian-based distro, including desktops. And so I'm just using it from here. It's a little easier for me to demo this from here. We will be going to Windows 11 though, because CasaOS is made to run in a web browser off of any computer. But the initial setup we're going to do here, if you've never used Casa before, it gives you a graphical interface to a server to manage your Docker apps. And it is great. I really like the interface of this one, especially for someone that doesn't know Docker apps, and I'm in that boat. I'm using CasaOS to learn Docker. But one of the things that I'd mentioned that it lacks is any RAID support. Now you can add drives into CasaOS through their storage setup here, but when you add a drive, it doesn't create any parity, and it merges it with the storage data directory. So what that is called mergerfs, and I have a video on that you can watch below in the description. But the problem is it doesn't create any parity. It's a really good idea. It can have parity if they use it in conjunction with another operating app called SnapRaid, I believe. So hopefully they'll integrate that. But in the meantime, if we want something with parity on CasaOS, we have to do it a different way unless we're using ZFS. So let's just look at the file manager here for a minute. So this is what I'm talking about. In the root directory of Linux, you've got this data directory, and that's where Casa stores everything, stores their Docker app information here, and then whatever data you put on the system is in this folder here. And so what we want to do though is we want to create a RAID array. So I've got 5 hard drives that I'm going to be doing that with. Now what we're going to be using is we're going to be using ZFS. I like ZFS. I use ZFS. I use TrueNAS for my file servers, and I just like the ZFS formatting for doing RAID. It's well known in the industry and it's free. But we're also, when we do that, we're gonna make that accessible to CasaOS, and we're gonna install Plex on here and put a little videos over there to show how easy it is, first of all, to install Plex and to have access to our video files that we create this RAID array. So we've got to hurry here. I want to get through this as quick as possible. And so whenever I talk about Linux, I'm usually on the desktop and talk about how easy the desktop is, and you don't even have to ever really go to the terminal now, with the exception of some things, and one of those is servers. And so we are going to have to go to the terminal here, but it's just copy and paste. We're not typing in any commands. We're just copy and paste those commands in. It's really simple. It's going to be quick. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste these commands in and get our RAID array started. Now I'm going to hit the terminal in CasaOS. Now some Debian-based distros don't automatically have SSH installed, so you might have to install that. That'll be in the description as well. Copy and paste it in. And so I'm just going to put The username and password is just the server or computer that you put CasaOS on. So I'm just going to hit this here, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a program called Cockpit. So Cockpit, and again, it's already on here, but you'll just hit that and you'll let it go through the install. As soon as you get the blinking cursor, it's done. It'll take a minute to install that. Then we're going to install a couple of modules for Cockpit. Again, all these are copy and paste. Now, in here it already says it exists because I've already done that, but I just want to show you how easy this is. We're just copying and pasting everything. We've got 2 more lines here, and to be honest, the website that I get these from, they just copy and paste it from there as well. So I'm just giving you a shortcut without having to go to the website to copy and paste these lines in. Alright, so now let's go ahead and go into Cockpit. When we open up Cockpit, we're going to use the same IP address here, but we're going to do :9090. And I've already got it right here. So like I said, we're just going to do :9090. That opens this up. And this takes the username of your system that Casa is on. Not the username that you put in for Casa itself, but the operating system. So now this gives us an overview as well. And so now what we can do is, you'll notice ZFS here because we're going to create a ZFS pool. We're going to use Cockpit for managing our ZFS pool once we create it. And so once you click on here for the first time into Cockpit, it's actually going to ask you, do you want administrative rights? And you want to click on that and say yes. I was already in here, so it doesn't show that. And then you'll put in your username and password. Also too, when you click on ZFS, so when you click on ZFS, it's going to bring up this configuration for ZFS-manager, and this is going to be on remove packages from ZFS and manage Zomba shares. You want to click those off because we want CasaOS to manage our Zomba shares, and if we remove packages of ZFS, then we won't be able to do anything from the command line, and we want to be able to have access to the command line for ZFS. So you want to take those off. Be sure to take those off, and then you just hit configure, and now you're ready to go. Okay, so with Cockpit we can create a ZFS pool, but the problem is those drives have to be almost exactly identical, from the same manufacturer or the same size. Anyway, so when you create a RAID array, you want all of your hard drives to be the same. The problem is with Cockpit, that's different with TrueNAS. When you create a ZFS pool of TrueNAS, those drives can be just a little off, and it'll still force the RAID array. And whatever the drive is, like let's say I have a drive that's 3.73 terabytes and I have another drive that's 3.6 terabytes, then it'll base the RAID array off the 3.6. Well, the problem is with Cockpit, it's ZFS capability. It just wants those drives to be exactly the same, like from the same manufacturer, so on and so forth. So you may run into a problem making the ZFS pool through the website here. So, but I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we're going to go to the terminal to create our ZFS pool, because I'm using drives from 3 different manufacturers, and they're a little bit mixed. In fact, you can see right here 3.64, 3.73, and so it really doesn't like that. But we're going to create a file or a pool or a folder, which they call pools. We're going to call that files up here. We're going to do RAID Z1. RAID Z1 is basically RAID 5. And there's options here. It doesn't matter what option I choose, it gives me an error, and I'll show you here. So I'm just going to choose these drives, and again, you can do it through here if all your drives are the same. But where I've mixed these drives and they are just a little off as far as the storage capacity, so let's hit create here, and this is what happens. Storage pool cannot be created. So but we're going to use Cockpit to manage our pool that we create through the terminal. And so whether I use the terminal here or use the CasaOS terminal, I'll just use the terminal here. And everything I'm doing here in the website, if you're running Windows, you can do it on your Windows. And we're going to go to Windows also and use Casa and Cockpit on Windows. I don't have to be on my Linux desktop here where I've got CasaOS stored. That's the advantage of the CasaOS interface to your server is you can run it from any computer in your house or have access to any computer. So let's go ahead and let's create that pool, that RAID Z pool. So the first command we're going to put in here is lsblk, and again I'm going to have all this in the description, cut and paste. So we're going to put that in here, and what we're going to see here is these are our drives, these are our disks here. So SDA1 is one of our 4 terabyte drives, it's 3.6 terabytes. Now you'll notice in Windows these would maybe show up as letters, drive letters. Linux doesn't represent it that way, but it still assigns this SDA to it. So we have drive A, then we have drive SDB, then we have drive SDC. So you can look at those as drive letters like it would be in Windows. Then we have this SDF, and you'll notice that it has some partitions on it. And we have our boot drive here. So this is the one that we don't want to use because that's what our operating system is on. So we're actually creating a RAID 5 out of these 4 disks here, or these 5 drives. And you can see how they're all somewhat different terabytes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at another command here really quick. This will also show you your drives. This is fdisk. We're going to list them. And so in here, it gives a description of your drive. So we're going to go, here is our SDA drive. And this is the manufacturer of the drive right here. It just gives you more information on it. But what you're going to notice is it's preceded by a /dev and then /SDA. And that's how it's represented in this computer. All the drives are devices, and so this is how it's attached to the computer through the /dev. So then we got A, B, C. So I did the other command because it's easier to see your drives, but we're going to be working with this whole line right here when we create our RAID. So let's go ahead, go down here again, and we're going to go ahead and list those again here. And so now we're going to put in the ZFS command to create our RAID 5. Okay, so here's our command line for that, and you've got to use sudo zpool create and then a dash and the F. The F is the one that forces it to use the drives no matter if they're a little bit of drive difference. We're calling this folder a pool files, and RAID Z1 is RAID 5. Now if it's RAID Z2, that's RAID 6. RAID 6 gives you 2 parity drives. RAID Z5 gives you 1, or RAID Z1 or RAID 5 gives you 1 parity drive. This is all you have to do. Hit the enter, and as long as your command comes back, your command prompt comes back blinking, then it's created now. That pool or this folder is now RAID 5. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at that really quick here. And we could look at it through the command line, but I'm just going to go into my file manager on the desktop. This is the advantage of using my desktop. I can just click on it to quickly show you this. Here is our files folder, and you'll notice here that this drive is 1.8 terabytes down here. But if we click into the files folder, it's 15 terabytes, almost 16 terabytes of drive space here. So that is our new RAID drive. What we're going to do here in Cockpit, let's refresh the ZFS interface, and it's going to show us that we created this pool or this RAID files. And so now we can check this, and we can look at the status. We can look at our drives are all in line, and now it hasn't been trimmed, so let's just say it's untrimmed, and I can go ahead and trim those if I want to. But if your drive starts to fail, it'll show the errors in here, and if you got a drive that's failing, you just go ahead and take it offline here, then you put in a new drive and you say replace drive, and it'll rebuild your RAID array. So so that's what we're using this for as well, and it will tell us how much. It will also tell us how much drive space we have. This is what's available. It actually is bigger than that, but it reserves some of your disk for the RAID array. And then right here it shows our usage on it right now. It's 100% free, and so But then what we can do here, one of the modules we put in here was this Navigator. And Navigator goes and lets us, we can now click on these folders, we can see who the owner is, we can see all the read and write options and so on and so forth. And of course this is the files that we just created. Right now it's root. It doesn't really matter that it's root. Might change that once we put it in, give Casa access to this. The reason why this one is a little bit more extensive, because in CasaOS, in your file manager here, you can't see any, and I think on purpose they don't want you messing around with any permissions in Casa, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. So, but in here you can change the permissions on this. In fact, if I want, I can change this permission here. I can put me as the owner and as the group, and then I can change this and just hit OK. And so that's the advantage of this this Navigator as well. When you're working on a server that's back in a room, you don't have direct access to it. These are both great tools. Casa for managing your Dockers, and then Cockpit for just some of your server functions as well, like your RAID array. So let's go ahead now and let's give CasaOS access to that RAID file, that RAID drive. So now we're going to go into files here. We're going to go into media. And we're going to create a folder here. And we're going to say new folder. And we're doing this through Casa, and we're going to give it that same file. We're going to give it files, the same name that we just created our RAID array with. So we're going to submit that. So now we have a files directory in here. And the reason why we're going to do that is we're going to mount our new pool, RAID pool, to this files in here. So then CasaOS has access to our RAID drive. So it's a really simple command to do that. We can go back over here to the Casa terminal if we want to. I'm going back and forth between terminals here. It doesn't matter which one you use. So we're going to put in this command here, and so we're going to just mount this. So sudo ZFS set mount point equals data media files, and we just created this files folder in there. Our RAID pool is also files, so we could have named these anything else, anything different, whatever you want to name those, and we just hit enter. And as long as you don't get any error that comes up with a blinking cursor, then you've now created that RAID, or you've now given CasaOS access to your new pool, your RAID pool. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to use the file manager here to show you this. So if we go here to files, and again, data is where our information is stored with Casa. Click in here, and we go to media, and now we can see. So right now my operating system is sitting on 1.8 terabytes. We click into files, and now we have 15.8 terabytes. So now that's our RAID directory. So so now let's do a couple of things here. I'm going to go into Casa's browser, and what I want to do is I actually want to take these folders and I want to copy them, or I want to cut them. I'm going to put them in the files folder here. So we're just going to do paste, and now we have our movie folders and everything in the files. The reason why we're doing that is because everything we save here, our movies and stuff like that, or any data, we can put a document folder in here. Anything that we want on that new RAID drive, we would want to put into here. Now I will say this much really quick. When I first was doing this, I actually mounted my RAID pool onto this media folder. Don't do that. It messes it up. These are folders that CasaOS uses, and it didn't like me mounting it to that. So create your own folder to mount to, and then store everything there. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my Windows machine, and we're going to finish up there. Alright, so now I'm on my Windows desktop, and I've got CasaOS open on here, and I've got Cockpit open on here as well. So now what we want to do is we've already moved these files over in here. But let's go ahead and access this from our file manager. So let's go ahead and open this up. Let's go to network here. And the IP address to that was 192.168.1.96. So let's hit that here. One of the things that we're going to do here, one of the reasons why we're coming here is we're going to share this folder. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit share here. And now when we go here, we should see that share. So there's our file share. I'm going to go ahead and just map this right now, and I'm just going to leave it the default just for demo purposes. It's just going to be Z. Okay, now that we have access here, I'm just going to copy this file over. This is a movie here, and now we can just start copying over here. I'm not going to use this one, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and take a minute, and I'm going to copy some movies and TV shows into the movies folder, and we're going to install Plex, and then we'll access that. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put some movies in here and a TV show in here. Let's go ahead and install Plex. So I'm going to go here to my App Store, and we'll just type in Plex here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit install. So now this is the whole thing that I want to mention here. So let's go into the settings of Plex for a minute. We don't have to change anything in here, but depending on where you locate the data, when you create your media pool or your file pool, whatever you want to call it, your RAID array, you may have to change this path to it. But because I put files in the media folder, then I don't have to change anything. So let's just go ahead and launch Plex, and I'll put in my username and password. Okay, so here we are at Plex, and I'm just going to hit, I'm not going to allow this, and we're just going to hit next. I don't need access outside. This is just for demo purposes. Alright, so now we can start adding our libraries here. So I'm going to add a library, I'm going to add movies, and then we're going to browse the media folders, and here is our media folder, but it also is showing our files folder here. So I can either get to it from here, click on files, and there's my movies, or I can just click on it here and get to my movies this way. I'm not saying that'll be the way it's set up for you, but if you put it in this media folder, then that's the way it'll show up. We're going to add that one, then we're going to add another TV show. We'll hit next, and I can click on files. There's my TV show, add library, and then I can hit. Okay, so now here are those movies that I added. I can start playing them. I'm actually going to mute the sound. Now we can play our videos. So it's that simple to set up. I know that we had to go to the terminal a few times, and I know that I just touched on the basis of creating a Z pool. There's not enough time in this video to go through the other commands, like if you want to replace it, or if you want to delete the pool, so on and so forth that you have. I will put the command line in for deleting a pool if you need to delete that. But that's how simple it is, and now your data at least is protected by some type of parity, and now you have more hard drive space to work with as well, without the limitations of CasaOS. Hopefully CasaOS is going to again expand this ability where they can provide parity for their merge-fs, but in the meantime, this is how you would do this in CasaOS. Again, ZimaOS already does RAID 5. Maybe they'll put that in here eventually, I don't know, but this is a way that you can get it set up. Now I will say this much, let's look at our RAM usage now. It did go way up because ZFS likes to use a lot of RAM. And so if you may want to add some more RAM. It's not going to really affect your programs that much, but depends on the Docker apps that you run. And obviously, if you're not doing that RAID array, you won't have to worry about that. Or if you use the Linux RAID array, it doesn't take as much RAM as ZFS does. But ZFS, it uses that RAM when you copy over files. It makes it more efficient, so on and so forth. But this is basically a solution to that if you want to run a RAID drive in CasaOS. Anyway, this is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Hope that was helpful, not confusing, and have a great day. Thanks.
Now that was easy peasy.